so much was set up already this year as potential things that we'll see in the future, and I'm sure we'll see them all. Seth and Punk, Drew and Punk, Cody and Punk. Cody and Punk having that moment was incredible. Cody and Seth having a return program. But everybody except Drew that I just mentioned have all become good guys. None of them are villains. And it's almost like, I mean, there are people who don't think Seth should turn. I can't imagine Punk turning at this point. And Cody's not turning. So it's almost like you've got this row of some of the best good guys that you've ever had. And in order to satiate that, you kind of need an unconquerable foe, no?
It falls in line with that. You're right. If you're going to have that murder, it's the opposite of the Heenan family.
Right.
Like you had Hogan, and then the Heenan family, he would set up all these opponents for Hulk Hogan. Now you have it in reverse. You're setting up all these baby faces to ultimately face Roman Reigns and lose.
Right. Right.
It's a crazy dynamic.
Yes.
When you think about it.
Exactly. And the fact that, like, if you really think about it, in the moment, it makes sense. Of course, everybody wants to see Cody win at WrestleMania. But at the same time, who's got bigger matches as a world champion, potentially, coming out of WrestleMania?
It's Roman.
It's Roman.
But this is something I have not done for a very long time, Sam, is where I am going to give my confidence to WWE creative here. Like,
so you're saying you're going to let him cook?
I'm going to let him cook. And since Triple H has taken over, and that SummerSlam was like that definitive event where from that moment forward,
right,
it was really like Triple H's, like
the Damage Control SummerSlam.
Yes. And then it's funny, the next month was the brawl out of All Out in Chicago. That was a month later after SummerSlam.
That's nuts that those two things crossed, and it's just the worst timing. Worst timing / best timing, depending on where you're sitting.
And I don't mean to get off topic here, but I remember going, because I was at All Out in Chicago, and I remember going and thinking to myself, man, AEW has got to hit a home run here, because the WWE is doing things right. AEW was the alternative to the WWE. Why? Because people are just like fed up with the WWE, the creative with the WWE. It just felt like you're not going anywhere. Well, now Triple H is in charge, and the exact opposite is happening to the WWE. And I was like, man, going into Chicago, I was like, AEW has got to make a statement here. They got to hit a home run. And the worst possible scenario happened coming out of that.
They did hit a home run. The pay-per-view was very good.
But nobody was talking about the pay-per-view the next day.
To this day, nobody remembers it.
And the other thing is, it's the same thing with All In and at Wembley. Like, here is, you have a record-setting crowd. What a feel-good moment for this new company. And kudos to AEW. A company that's only been around less than 5 years is able to draw, 75, 80,000 people for a wrestling event. That's unheard of, Sam. But what were we talking about the next day? We were talking about CM Punk.
You know what that tells you? Don't let MJF have a hot angle at the end of a show.
Like now hopefully AEW can heat up again, and they're really missing MJF for sure.
Yeah.
But that you just said it, that it crossed. That was a crazy 30 days for pro wrestling.
I think Cody and Seth have to lose. I don't see any scenario.
Oh, they have to.
They have to lose.
They have to. Though, I mean, there is a way that they could give you going back to the Wicker Man, a false sense of security where it's like, all right, you know what? Cody won. He could go to WrestleMania night number 2. He doesn't have any worries. He's got no way. They don't have to worry about outside interference, right? Like, and then everybody's like, yeah, we don't have to worry about the bloodline. There's no way there's going to be any kind of interference. They could hoodwink you here.
Of all times, finally, Roman wins clean.
Oh my gosh.
It's WrestleMania. I'm so glad you brought up the Wicker Man, because I just when you said that, I started putting the pieces together. The Wicker Man, this poster is here in my studio. It's one of my favorite movies ever because it's very, very weird, right? And you're never quite sure what's going on. And you think you might get a happy ending. And at the very end of the movie, you realize not only are you not getting a happy ending, but from the very start, there was never a hope of a happy ending.
And this story, they could tell this story where it's like, yeah, how did you not see that?
Right.
How did you not see that? It's right there in front of you.
That parallel is the first time I've been able to. People go, Sam, why do you keep saying you think Roman Reigns should win? You want Roman Reigns to win. You know how upset people will be. Yeah, but The Wicker Man's my favorite movie.
The Wicker Man.
It's my favorite movie. Like, WrestleMania 39, people literally, they were like, well, I'll bet they changed that day of. I'll bet they day of, because Cody was supposed to win. It was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. And what if with all this conversation, we're going to WrestleMania 40? It was never going to happen. Roman's not losing the title. Like, that's the part that we forget, I think, sometimes. We get so caught up in the micro sense, in the story that's happening right now, that we forget about the larger story. And the larger story ends, Roman wins. That's the larger story. Roman's the champ. And he keeps being the champ. You just said we're at this historical precipice where Roman is the 4th longest reigning WWE champion.
Yes.
This year, this calendar year, he has the opportunity to be the 3rd longest reigning champion.
Yes.
And there are people that will say, well, that's not really a record because it's not the top. That's ridiculous. Of course, it's not the record. It's still a record. They'll say, well, no, because that's the universal type. Okay, with the semantics, we know what we're dealing with. But most importantly, there are people that are like, well, nobody cares. No? Because I'm pretty sure that I saw a huge deal made out of the fact that Roman Reigns held that title for 1,000 days.
They did how many vignettes, how many
merch?
videos, like
they had
all the
tracksuits
stuff
that said 1,000.
You know, and he keeps hitting landmark after landmark after I mean, honest to God, Sam, did you ever think there would be a day where a champion could surpass Hulk Hogan?
No, absolutely not, because I thought it was a bygone era. I said, we don't do that anymore. That's not wrestling anymore. Like, that's never going to happen. Like, even when you would have that conversation about, is Stone Cold a bigger star than Hulk Hogan? And we would have that conversation as the Attitude Era went on.
Yeah.
But you'd go, yeah, like he's selling more shirts and he's more famous, but it's a different era. And it's also more about the whole space that Stone Cold is in. Hulk Hogan is still kind of untouchable.
Yeah, and there's an era that it relates to, and I'll bring it back to the world of the NFL. There's the NFL before the first Super Bowl, and then there's the NFL after the Super Bowl started. Like, you know, the Cleveland Browns won plenty of NFL championships, but nobody remembers that because that's from an era that's forgotten about, because really a lot of people look at it from what they can actually rule and have metrics to, and that's the Super Bowl. You know, how many Super Bowls have the Cleveland Browns won? They haven't won any. They've ever been to a Super Bowl. So all those championships, that almost feels like mythology at this point. It's so long ago.
Yes.
Because what is the NFL measured by? How many Super Bowls have you won?
But what if you had a team that not only surpassed Super Bowls, like to the point where the whole Super Bowl era, yeah, you got to give it to that team. But now we're going back to where before it was Super Bowls.
But you don't even have to, Sam, because once Roman Reigns passes Hogan,
right,
that's the WrestleMania era.
That's it.
That's it. Like Backlund and Bruno Sammartino, that's like the Cleveland Browns winning NFL championships before the Super Bowl.
Right.
And like you said, that's in grasp. That's there. We could see it coming. We could see that day coming. It's this calendar year.
But you're right about the fact that Bruno Sammartino and Bob Backlund's records, it wasn't even wrestling as we know it. It wasn't what we know wrestling to be now. Hulk Hogan was the beginning of wrestling as we know it today, of WWE.
Like, I mean, you would say, and I would say this too, there's the world of pro wrestling after WrestleMania and the
Yes.
world of pro wrestling before WrestleMania.
100%.
So even if like Roman's the longest reigning champion in the WrestleMania era, that's all people are going to think about because that's a scale of 40 years.
Right. So you're telling me we need to go back over 40 years
Over
to have the
40
conversation?
years to have that conversation about like once Roman surpasses Hogan in the world of the WWE, WWF / WWF, Roman's on that Mount Rushmore now.
Yes.
He's on that Mount. He's one of those four faces of the greatest of all time.
Because he's done the impossible. Like, there was a time, and it still exists, where you wanted your stars to measure up to the stars of old. So what did you do? You tried to get them multiple reigns. You tried to get them closer and closer and closer to that 16 mark, to that Flair mark, because that was the only goal in sight. Try to get the title on Cena as many times, Orton as many times, Charlotte as many times. Because the idea of somebody going past the Hogan run of a single reign that lasted that long, it doesn't happen anymore. And that's completely changed. And you'll never have a shot at it again.
Never.
You won't. So, are we not going to wait until August?
But that's the argument.
And by the way, I believe if you look at the calendar, it's actually late August, which means it's not SummerSlam, it's Bash in Berlin, for the record. People go, we got to get to SummerSlam. No, and I don't know if Roman's even going to wrestle at Bash in Berlin. Maybe you can go to SummerSlam. If he's not going to wrestle in Berlin, then it is SummerSlam. But there is technically, I believe, the last pay-per-view on that calendar is the end of August, Bash in Berlin.
I think I'm going to go to Bash in Berlin.
Really?
Yeah.
See Roman defend the title?
Well, my wife wants a trip to Poland. So what better way than, as I always do,
It's perfect.
it's just coincide the trip to Poland
We should see if
to
we can
August
do it.
31st.
We should see if we can do a Notsam Busted Open live show in Berlin to see if we can get the trip covered.
You know what? That's an even better idea, Sam.
At least write it off.
But think about it. You just said right here on this show, you're like about Cody winning and how people are going to walk in there thinking that Cody is definitely going to win at WrestleMania 40. But now you just said everything you just said. Now people are going to be like, oh, wait a second.
Right. And all the opponents that we were just talking about for Cody Rhodes, what if after WrestleMania, first of all, what if after WrestleMania, what if Roman turns on The Rock? What if Roman decides to assert his dominance? We've watched Roman every promo on SmackDown. He doesn't love the attention The Rock gets. He doesn't love the introductions that Paul Heyman gives The Rock. He didn't like the fact that he had to stay in the ring. Remember, it was 2 weeks ago. It was The Rock's first heel promo with the sleeveless Versace shirt on. When he said, "I'm out of here because you didn't acknowledge me enough," and Paul Heyman said, "You got to stay. He's coming. He's coming." That Roman's not in that position usually. What if we look one step past this sort of, The Rock's going to turn on Roman because he's the real head of the table. What if Roman wants to remind The Rock that he's the real head of the table? And what if after WrestleMania that happens? What if Seth doesn't turn on Cody, but Cody loses? And we go to Seth versus Roman. We go to Punk versus Roman. McIntyre finally gets some revenge versus Roman. All these matches that we have lined up for Cody work just as well, if not better, for Roman Reigns.
True, but on the other side of it, I mean, they have gold with Cody Rhodes. Can you remember?
No. I already know your question, and the answer is no.
The answer is no.
Since, again, and this is important, maybe even more important than the title, going back to the Hogan era, Hulk Hogan was the last babyface, and we don't like to use the lingo, but the last babyface that people cheered, and that was so strong that people enjoyed cheering for him so much that they booed the bad guys.
Yes.
The good guys are getting cheered, the bad guys are getting booed. Cody Rhodes is the first guy since Hogan that when you look at arenas or when you go to arenas, I've gone to 2 shows with my 7-year-old son. We're both cheering for Cody. And you look around Every kid is cheering for Cody. Every woman is cheering for Cody. Every man is cheering for Cody. That hasn't happened.
Think about that. There are people who said there's never going to be another John Cena. I feel like what Cody has done is surpass John Cena. Because John Cena, the crowd was split when it came to John Cena.
Yeah.
When it comes to Cody, that is not the case right now.
It's not.
And
I mean, John Cena did 10 years on top.
Listen, I'm not disrespecting John Cena. I'm talking about the love and respect from the crowd. What Cody is getting right now, we haven't seen this since Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, and Hogan by 90, it was done.
Yeah, it was done.
By 1990, people were tired of it. Like the older guys, the people who booed Cena in 1990 were booing Hogan. He had to turn heel. That's why the second run was so successful. But if that's all true, and it is, then I would ask you this. Don't you think that Cody is so popular to an unprecedented level that you go, nobody could survive losing to Roman Reigns twice at WrestleMania? I think that there's one person that could survive losing to Roman Reigns twice at WrestleMania. I think there is one person that could show up on Raw ready to lick his wounds and have to deal with whoever he has to deal with next. I think Cody Rhodes could absolutely not only survive losing again, but 6 months from now, be even bigger, grow exponentially.
Wow.
And part of that is because those losses are so protected. I was shocked when Drew McIntyre beat him on Raw. Cody doesn't lose matches. And it's not even in an obnoxious way. But he doesn't lose matches.
I mean, Sam, there's a part of me that wants to agree with you, and then there's a part of me that's saying, man, you got to strike while the iron's hot. And
that's your brain and your heart arguing. I got your brain. I got your brain.
It got my brain. It's
small, but I got it.
Yeah, listen, it takes a lot. It takes a lot, but you were able to do it. You're able to tap in there. Man, that's a big ask. That's a big ask because it's can you get a little bit more juice out of this bottle? Like, we're getting a lot of juice out of this bottle, but can we get even more?
Yeah,
to last us another year.
And even is that it? Like, or does it have to last a year? Because what I don't think is that the story now, like, we go another year and WrestleMania 41 is Roman versus Cody. Like, I think now
thinks a lot can change between now and then. There's no doubt about it. 100%.
And Cody doesn't have to. If Cody's going to beat Roman, it doesn't have to be at WrestleMania. If WrestleMania 41's main event is going to be Roman and Rock, which I think a lot of us hope, think, whatever, there is this idea that either after or immediately before the Hogan record, that's when Cody gets the nudge. But do you think, as a Cody fan, Cody Crybaby, I heard it on The Rock's Instagram.
I am a Cody. I would like to admit that I wear it. I'm proud of it. I'm a Cody Crybaby.
As a pink-robed Cody Crybaby in your basement, idiot jack-off. According to The Rock.
I know, hey, that's The Rock's words, and there's not a lot of people that doubt what The Rock has to say.
He's right more than he's wrong. Do you think that Cody has to win it at WrestleMania?
This is something that Bully and I have talked a lot about on Busted Open. Bully believes he doesn't need to win it at WrestleMania. He actually believes that the win should happen at Madison Square Garden because that's where Dusty thought he won the championship against superstar Billy Graham.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it needs to happen at WrestleMania.
So if it's not 40, it's got to be 41.
And you were there when Tommy asked Cody the question.
Yep.
Holding my fat head.
I was, because there's like a serious question. I was like, slowly moving it down.
There are times you and Tommy were in sync, and there are times you weren't in sync. But Tommy asked him the question.
It's a great question.
Does this have to happen at WrestleMania? And Cody said, I believe it does.
Yeah, he did say that. He said that, and it makes this all more compelling, which is one of the reasons why he would say that. But I feel like I've set up a scenario along the way here that you've agreed with, although you haven't. Do you think, you didn't give me a straight answer, is Cody the one guy that could survive those 2 losses?
I think he is the one guy that could. I'm not saying that it should,
I know.
but he could. I still think he needs to win at WrestleMania 40.
Okay. If Cody can survive the losses, if the Hogan record puts Roman on a different streak, in a different universe, if we can get the Cody moment back again, might be a year from now, might be whatever, but we'll never get the Roman beats Hogan's record again, ever. We've agreed on all these things. And if we have just as many compelling opponents for Roman coming out of WrestleMania that we do for Cody, then make me an argument other than because the story that Cody Rhodes should beat Roman Reigns.
I feel like right now, and I've gotten a good vibe, not just from the people calling to Bust It Open or what we hear when we're watching the WWE on TV or in the arena. Man, I bump into a lot of fans and a lot of parents with kids. And I've never bumped into fans with the dynamic where the parents love Cody and the kids love Cody. It's exactly what's happening now. Man, sometimes, you catch lightning in a bottle. This could be one of those times where it's like, wow.
Is this a show from a year ago? Because I heard all this a year ago.
Now it's on.
Is it more lightning in a bigger bottle this year?
You would, though, agree. That's how we started, that Cody's popularity is on a completely different level. Sam, you were just comparing his popularity to Hogan.
And I said it was so good that he's the only person that could survive and flourish.
I think it's taking a chance. That's taking a...
Are you risk averse?
God, it's taking a big chance.
Yes, I'll give you that.
It's taking a big chance where I feel like you may not have to take that chance.